this episode, let me ask you this. Like, what would it be worth if you could have a system that was proven to work with thousands and thousands and thousands of business owners and founders worldwide that would allow you to run your business without you? Imagine that for a second. Like, how would that shift the game where you could spend more time at home, or you could spend more time with your kids, or you could enjoy, if you have a son that plays sports, you could be present at those events versus maybe feeling like you're on call or go to your daughter's recitals and a whole lot more. Imagine that for a second, because if that's of interest to you, you're going to love today's show, today's guest expert. In fact, he is definitely an expert in being able to help do that. Having been a founder and CEO of 9 companies that he started, he's a best-selling author of, I can't even hold all these books in my hands, Billionaire in Trading, The Business Coach, Leads, Successful Franchising, The Wealth Coach, Buying Customers. And he also is the founder and chairman of a company called ActionCOACH, which is the world's #1 business coaching firm in the world. How great is that, right? So if I were you, I'd grab a pen, grab a piece of paper, jot down some notes, because today we're going to have some pure gold to be able to share with you. His name, by the way, is Brad Sugars. Brad, how are you, my friend?
G'day, Dan. Good to be here, buddy.
Same here. I want to dive right into it. Most of the time we have a story context of like why we really are so committed to do what we do. So why are you doing what you're doing today, Brad?
3 reasons. I would be remiss if I didn't say finances. Finances is definitely one reason I enjoy doing it. I enjoy a lifestyle, and I like to make sure it stays that way. Second is the game. The game of business is a lot of fun. It is in my nature to make things better, to fix things, to turn things into something that's better than it was before. And I just happen to do that with companies rather than with things. And the third is teaching is probably my biggest passion. Probably age 20 was the first time I was on stage teaching, and just thought, this is amazing. This is like, I get to teach people, anytime you get to teach what you know and it helps people, it just changes the way you feel about doing that. So, yeah, I think that's probably the 3 main reasons.
That's awesome. Now, in this journey you've had of decades of experience, and now with ActionCOACH and the other businesses that you've got ownership, equity, and so on, obviously there's, peaks and valleys and so on. Can you remember a time, Brad, like if you could think back maybe in your early days, like, you talk about, your fair share of scars, business scars, right? Like, what's the lowest point you can remember, or maybe the biggest mistake at the time that you can recall? And what was it? And then, like, what did you do to transform from that experience to, ultimately create more success?
Yeah, I remember it vividly. Early 20s, brought in some business partners, helping me run the business, and they decided they liked our money better than I did. They had a wonderful wedding in Fiji with all of the money and left me with about $500,000 in unpaid bills. I was so busy doing the work that I didn't take the time to run the company and manage the finances properly, even though I was the only accountant amongst the 3 partners. That I had to, I'll tell you how embarrassing that was. I had to move back in with my parents, but I still remember fixing it. My dad came in one day and he looked at me and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't know. I just don't know what I'm doing." He said, "But you've made $1 million, right?" "Yeah." "Then do it again." And it was like the simplest piece of advice you could get, but definitely the most important, because you may lose the money, but you haven't lost the knowledge of how to do it, sort of thing. And so there was that knowledge and I just went back out and did it again and paid everyone back, and here we are 20 something years later. ActionCOACH is now 30 years old as a company. So you sit back and you start looking at some of those things, but obviously putting in place a lot better financial management was possibly the first thing that happened at that point in time.
Yeah, and speak to it again, because you've been able to scale, thousands and thousands of franchisees all over the world. I got
just over 1,100 right now.
Yeah,
for ActionCOACH, let alone our other franchise companies.
Yeah, and as you described the situation where you brought in partners, right? Maybe speak a little bit about maybe what you've learned in all the years of doing what you do, not only for the franchise side of it, but also meeting partners or people you team up with, collaborate with, about the idea, call it selection, client selection, right fit selection. Speak to that a little bit, and some of what you've discovered.
Firstly, when it comes to business partners, business partnerships don't work. They just don't. It's hard enough keeping a marriage together, and well, you have sex to keep that together. So, if there's none of that in the business, it's eventually, and that's why anytime we do go into anything the resembling a partnership, we have a prenup on day one. We just start every business as if it's going to at some stage implode. Now, I like to think of it as sort of, we set a business up to do something and then we sell it. And that's why I think building a business to sell is a great idea for partners, because if you've got a vision of 3 to 7 years from now that it's going to be moved on, then it's a good time frame for all involved. I think it works very, very well. When it comes to operations with partnerships, I like to think of it as investors rather than partners, or because when there's operational partners together, that creates challenges. They're not good enough at creating roles and descriptions and org charts and who does what and all of those sorts of things. And it becomes that there should always be a senior partner. There should always be a CEO. There should always be someone who is the final decision maker. I know in my companies where I am a major shareholder or a majority shareholder, and my partner is the operational CEO, it's like, yeah, and you can be fired by the board at any point in time. The board can fire you, but not having owners meetings is a big problem too. You must have board meetings where other members of the board are there, not just the owners, but you have appointed other board members who are there to listen. And it might be your brother-in-law and your next door neighbor's friend who's an accountant, but you need other people who you have to be held accountable to. A CEO has to be held accountable. The biggest problem for small business in most cases is that the CEO is the owner. And if you're the CEO and the owner, you lie to yourself. I did a great job today. Yes, you did. Well done. It just happens that way. So look, when it comes to working with people long term, I think you got to understand relationship building, and relationship building is a thing. You got to clearly define roles, who does what, who can do what can you do? Because I know in franchising, many of our companies are in franchising, and one of the things we realize is that our franchise partners are exactly that, they're partners. They must have a decision-making capability. They must have a fair bit of the say in what goes on for their operations and their franchise, but they must do it within a set of guidelines or within a set of rules that make it work, because you want them to succeed, but you want yourself to succeed, and you also want to protect the rest of the franchise organization. So ultimately, I might sound like I'm down on the whole idea, but I love franchising. I love franchise partners. I love the fact that you have a set term relationship, you have that ability to work together, and you go and do a great job together, and you build something together. But yeah, it's clearly defined roles, I think, is the clear key to it. You're on mute. Sorry, buddy.
A couple of weeks ago, we had a chance to have some lunch together, and we were talking about, some things like culture, right? And we were debating like who was going to end up in the Super Bowl. And, we were talking through, the whys and the hows and so on. And you look at, the 2 Super Bowl teams that are there, in a lot of ways, it comes down to players who perform within a culture, right? Jalen Hurts, who's the quarterback for the Eagles, right? He performs in a culture that if you put him in New England, probably isn't going to perform exactly the same way. It's a different system, right? Now, as you've done this, Brad, for as long as you have, and, again, having over 1,000 franchisees and just ActionCOACH, let alone the others that you run, this promise we talked about, run a business without you, right? Get out of the day-to-day, so to speak. What do you see are some of the biggest mistakes that most owners, CEOs, founders are making as they're looking to really free themselves up and get out of the day-to-day and have it run without them?
Yeah, going too early is the biggest mistake. They try and get out too early before the business actually as a team. And rather than delegate to someone the growth of the company, because you're not trying to build someone who can run the business. You're trying to build someone who can grow the business in your absence. You want a CEO, and I sometimes say it jokingly, but I mean it very seriously, that, millionaires want to be the CEO, billionaires want to employ the CEOs. And a lot of people employ someone to run their company that's not a CEO. They're not a great business builder. They're a manager maybe. And so, as we know with anything, it's either growing or it's dying, and they're trying to keep status quo, and so it's going to die. That's sort of the way that we do it. So for it to be, we have in my book, The Business Coach, we go through a 6-step process of doing that. And one of the things is that one of the things that you've got to do to hand the business over to someone is actually build them. You've got to build that human being. It's rare that you will bring them in from the outside cold and put them in. The only time I want to bring in a CEO cold and put them in is when there's something wrong in the business. When the business needs massive shift, then I want a new blood to come in, buy the business and do a massive shift sort of thing. But if I'm buying a business, or if I'm building a business where I want it to be run along similar lines, then I've got to build that human. I've got to build the people, not buy the people sort of thing. So I would rather bring someone in as a CMO or as a COO and build them into a CEO, rather than on day one give them that responsibility and accountability sort of thing. So it usually takes a while for people to grasp the culture of an organization. Like a perfect example of this right now is Elon Musk with Twitter. You've got a guy who's great at building companies, and he thinks he can also turn around companies. And he's going in there and trying to breed this entirely different culture into an organization that is antithesis of the culture that he breeds in many ways. So some ways they're the same, but in many ways very different. And so, for me as an entrepreneur that buys and builds companies, that culture point is very important. But also, I go back to, I think it was, what was that funny? It wasn't funny. It was the Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze. They bought that bar, they took it over, and on first night, he fired 1/3 of the staff because they didn't fit his culture. I think when you take over a company, or when you're building a company, the culture is most important. And most companies, Dan, don't have a documented culture. They don't have a written, agreed set of values. And that's a tough way to build a business. If you're going to recruit people to join your team, you need them to join with a certain documented culture that they know what it is. They need to know what the vision of the organization is, what the mission is, where you're going, all of those different aspects. And so I think today, more than ever before, who you are and why you do what you do is more important in business than what you actually do. Who you are and why you do it will help you recruit both customers and team members far greater than ever before.
As you're watching or listening right now, how would it shift the game for you if you were able to focus on developing the culture, helping communicate regularly the vision of your business, the mission of your business, the values of your business, right? The why behind what you do, of what you do. How would that transform your ability to get freed up, right?
Yeah.
To be able to recruit clients, to be able to recruit potential talent to help you grow the business.
So this is my second latest book, Pulling Profits Out of a Hat. That one was the big bestseller. We go through the 5 core disciplines of building a business, and mission is one of those core disciplines to build an exponential growth business, because you can build a lot of businesses, but if you want something that's year on year exponential growth, there's some different things that have to happen. And mission, that word love, your customers must love doing business with you, and your people must love working with you. If they don't love it, then don't expect transformational, exponential growth in the business. So they have to love what you're doing.
And speaking of loving what they're doing, Brad, as you've worked with so many different franchisees and in these businesses that you have equity and or you're a shareholder, stakeholder, majority, what's an example when someone gets this right with getting their alignment and their culture and their values and their vision, maybe you've got a story of someone who was like really kind of a mess, and you came in and helped transform that message to turn it into something. It was, what's an example or a story? Like if someone's watching or listening right now where like, wow, that's a great kind of case study or example story of like this is the path I really should be heading towards.
Yeah, look, I think if I go on, and I won't mention names, a particular company based in the US that is a buying group. And when they came to me, they were doing about 50 million pounds a year. And we sat down and mapped out a 3 billion pound a year business plan and created a vision for 3 different divisions, each of them doing about $1 billion a year type thing. And by the end of this year, they'll be about 1/6 of the way along that process. And you sit down and you take a look at creating that vision. Now, most business owners, I don't know what it is, Dan, but if I take an average business owner and ask them to write me a business plan, they won't write me $1 billion a year business plan. They'll write me $1 million or 10 million or something like that. They're not going to try and build $1 billion a year company. And when you ask them why not, well, I don't know how to do that. Well, it's exactly the same as doing that, because when you look at McDonald's isn't a multi-billion-dollar company. It's a few $million company just in thousands of locations, you know, and that's the distinction that a lot of people have to come up with and understand, that you're building let's say you build $1 million a year business. Well, to do $1 billion, you've got to put it in 1,000 locations. And it's not as complex as most people make it. You know, what I do today is I buy companies where I see them, that they're brilliant companies. They're running in one location, or a share of companies that they're doing a phenomenal job, but they're in one location or in one city or in one state. And you sit there and you go, well, in the world, I can see this being in about 2,000 locations. You know, and the owner at the time, or the person who I've invested with, the partner in the business, just looks at me kind of crazy going, what do you mean in 2,000 locations? Well, once we get the model correct, and this, you go back to the old Ray Kroc buying the McDonald's brothers quick service system. The interesting thing about that McDonald's system is that the McDonald brothers also sold that same system to Taco Bell and Burger King. So you've got 3 different multi-billion-dollar brands built off of one system. So you build a great system, you build great people, you build a great company. It's no more complex than that. But I think a lot of people miss out on the fact that that vision for how big the business can be does 3 things. 1, it changes the business plan. 2, it changes the type of people that want to join your organization. And 3, it changes the type of customers you go after as well. So yeah, three different things that really happen from that.
And as you're watching or listening, like, how would that shift the game for you? Like if you were able to evolve to a place where you've got a really strong system, you've got a great system, you build a great system, you build great people, would you build a better company, an even better company with more scalability, more opportunity, get yourself into a place where you could be freed up? I would imagine we could go on about this all day long, Brad. What would you say, like if someone are listening right now and they're looking at like where we're at in this, call it this new world we're in, right? And so many things are shifting, and AI and virtual and all the, I mean, in many ways, I think you talked about it. In order to build $1 billion business, you need $1 billion plan. If you only, as I think I heard you say, if you only want to build a $20 million business, you at least need a $20 million plan. So number one, it's what you hit on a little bit earlier, building your, like, as you're watching, like, when was the last time you had someone like Brad or us challenge you to put $1 billion plan together in the first place? Now, I want to speak to the elephant in the room right now, Brad. I want to get your take on it. For someone who go, oh, I don't need $1 billion. That's not my thing. What would you say to that person with that potential limited belief or limited thinking they might come up with?
Well, the business isn't you. The business is its own entity. And for you to let the business breathe a life into itself, it has to be based on market share, not on your needs or wants. If you want great people to join your team, they need to be seeing that you're doing great things and building a $2 million a year company, great people aren't going to get very excited by that. Okay, you can build $2 million a company. There's 20 of us working there. Well, okay, we're not all, none of us is going to make that much money. You know what I mean? It's like, but that being said, like when you and Mike were with me prior to Christmas, and we did that week-long planning of, how to build $1 billion business. And, I walk everyone through that. I don't think at the start of that 5 days, Dan, most people are sitting there going, yeah, I want $1 billion business. Most people at the start of it are thinking, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know how this will happen. But once I structure with everyone, this is how you build your $1 billion. Once people can see it and feel it in their heart, then it's not about the billion. It's about, and in most cases, the plan ends up more than $1 billion. But, it's not about the billion. It's about the challenge in thinking to 100 times or 200 or 500 times your current business type thing. How different would you have to think? And we go back to the thing of once you set a new set of goals, you got to set a new set of learning. And that's where I get a lot of people who, they set the massive goal, but they're unwilling to do the learning. And that's, why I've written so many dang books and done so many training courses and stuff, because my theory is the more you learn, the more you can earn. And if you're unwilling to grow into your goals, then don't set bigger goals. I know for me, every time I challenge myself with a new goal, it's okay, am I willing to do that learning? I looked at the whole investing in crypto, and I sat with two of my friends who are very, very good at that stuff a couple of years back. And I said, am I willing to do the 6 months learning to learn this, to invest into it? And I wasn't willing to. So I stayed with investing in business and real estate where I know and love. And, that's one of my rules. I only invest where I'm an expert. If I'm not willing to become an expert, then don't invest in that thing. So.
And speaking of expert, you're prolific in, tools you create, you've got all kinds of systems for businesses, through your books. And then you've got some courses, you have your 30X business, 30X life, by the way, because, there's a lot of people talking about 10X, right? 10X your growth, 10X, 10X, 10X. And you have 30X. I'm just curious, what was your perspective of why you wanted to focus on a 30X model versus, say, what others are doing, 10X or whatever?
Well, there's three things. First of all, at the beginning, it was just a basic name because it's 30 minutes a day for 30 days with me. So it's like, 30X. But we see a lot of companies coming to us where 30% growth is a goal, right? And I look at them and I ask them the question, what if we remove percentage and put in an X? If you were trying to do 15%, we said, let's do 15 times, not 15%. Or if you were doing 30%, let's do 30 times rather than that. And the challenge, and then I often throw them a question, because most people, when you ask them to exit rather than, do a percentage base, it just blows their mind. They're like, I don't think I can. Brad, I'm already working 60 hours a week. If I doubled the business, I'd be working 120 hours a week. No, actually, if we doubled the business, you'd be working less hours, but that's a whole other perspective of building a team that builds the business. When I come back to the theory of the 30 rather than the 10, there's nothing massive about it other than I get to a question with everybody, and that is, how are you going to open your business in India? And they again look at me kind of funny because I'm asking them the question. I said, well, okay, here is arguably going to be the fastest growth market in the world. You've got China, who's going to implode in the next 10 years or so. You've got Japan that's doing pretty strong now that they've partnered with the US. You've got the US that's doing amazing. You got all of this, and the next biggest growth market will be India. So how are you going to open your business there? And they're like, I don't want to open in India. I said, I didn't ask if you wanted to. I said, how are you going to? Because if you can't come up with a solution to opening in India, then you don't have a solution to open in Indiana. You need a solution to scale the business. And so again, in that other book, we talk about strategy being 4 things: leverage, which is do the work once, get paid forever; scalability, which is the next sale costs less and is easier; marketability, which is the product or service sells itself; and opportunity, which is the size of the market that you're going after. Most businesses, if I was to try and challenge them to do $1 billion a year in revenue, they can't do that in the geography that they're currently doing business in. They can't do it in that trading location. They have to expand their trading market to do it. I sat with my friend last night who's got a very large online game business, not gaming, but game business. You know, online people play games and solitaire and all that stuff. And I just sat with him and said, show me your market share worldwide. And he's a US-based business. So have a guess, Dan, what percentage of his business was based in the US? More than 80%.
Yep.
And it's like, so hang on. 1/3 of the world's income is in this market. 2/3 of the world's income is in other markets. And you got, so tell me, where's your user acquisition budget for Germany? Oh, we don't have a user acquisition budget for Germany. How about your user acquisition budget in Japan? We don't have a user acquisition budget in Japan. Well, that's why you're not getting many new users anymore. You've maxed out the US and you're wondering why you can't make it successful. Well, you need to go to Netherlands, dude. You need to go to all these other markets and start doing business there where you don't have as big a competition as you do here for the market that you're chasing.
As you're watching or listening right now, is your thinking starting to get stretched? Is Brad giving you a perspective to challenge you to go bigger, think bigger, do bigger, right? To build a culture that is bigger than you, to have a bigger impact, to have a bigger game to play so that you can have a bigger impact in the world? Like, what would happen for you if you applied some of these simple strategies that Brad's been sharing with you? And I can't help but wonder, Brad, I mean, again, you have so many tools and resources, it might be hard to pin down one area to go to, but like if someone is intrigued by what we're talking about, you know, growing a business without you having to run it, to build the systems that we're talking about, to build into leverage and scalability and marketability and size, right? Building the vision and go, where can people go to connect with you, learn more about you, what you have available?
Everywhere. I'm on every platform there is, buddy. I have enough team members doing all that stuff. But, you know, look, I think that dive on Amazon, start with one of the books, you know, start there, or jump on my website and start with any one of the 30X programs, business, wealth, or life, or do all three. Do 90 days with me. If you do 90 days with me, I will revolutionize your thinking in such a way that you can't have anything but an amazing life following that, just the way you're thinking. Or come to my annual universities. We do 4 programs a year in that. But I think the biggest thing, Dan, is that they start somewhere, even if it's just subscription to my YouTube channel or my, you know, anything like that. The key in learning is to never stop. You know, I was lucky enough at age 16 to meet Jim Rohn, and he said to me, son, it's pretty simple. You read a book a week for the rest of your life. Age 31, I was on stage with Mr. Rohn, and I was his opening act, basically. And I showed him my notes from when I was 16, and he said, these are amazing, son. Please call me Jim. I said, yes, Mr. Rohn. Some people earn that designation. There was never going to be anything other than Mr. for me, because the guy was a genius and helped me get on that path. But when we sit down and we think about it, no matter what business you're in, no matter what format you want to build your business, you've got to get better at business. There is just no other way around it. Now, you can get better by learning, you can get better by recruiting, you can get better by having mentors or coaches, you can get better by, there's so many ways to keep getting better. But if you build a great team, they'll build a great company. And I've always been of that mentality, that the more I can build my people. And yet I still remember, got to be 20 odd years ago, I was in Belfast in Northern Ireland, and a gentleman says to me, as I'm teaching about teaching your staff, he says, but Brad, when I teach my people, they leave. And I said, yeah, and if you don't, they'll stay. He said, yeah, I want them to stay. I'm like, no, you don't, buddy. No.
That's right.
But, you know, Richard Branson said it best when he said, or Sir Richard Branson, should I say, when he said, you know, you've got to teach people so that they're good enough that they can leave, but run a company that's good enough that they don't want to leave. You know, so that's a big part of success. But business, Dan, is hard work. It's hard work. Running your own business is not easier than having a job. Having a job is much easier than running your own business. You know, when you can go home at 5 o'clock, clock out, and actually clock out, it's different. You know, business owners I talked about Sir Richard. He used one of my quotes one time on his blog article. It was that, business owners are the crazy people that work 80 hours a week, so we don't have to work 40 hours a week for someone else. and we are a little bit that crazy, but I want to come back to a point of business. The job, my definition of a business, is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. Your job as a business owner is to build a business that runs whether you show up or not. Your job is not to be the hardest working person in the business. Your job is to be the person that builds a company that runs whether you're on the beach or not. I just spent a month in Australia taking the kids down there to see the family and stuff. And I didn't answer emails. I didn't answer phone calls. I don't want to. I work 2 days a week. I am the chairman of the board for 11 companies, meaning I'm not the CEO. I don't run the companies. I'm technically the CEO of ActionCOACH. My chief of staff, Kate, though, she actually runs the business. I'm the leader. She's management type thing. And, but I need to be the figurehead of that company. So I stay on as CEO. But running 11 companies in 2 days a week, I got 5 kids. I want to be a dad most of the week. So, I just dropped my eldest daughter. She's in Florence for the next semester. So I'm going to go visit her in Florence, and I'm not going to take phone calls while I'm visiting my daughter. That would be against the system. I like to live what we teach, but, you got to learn the life success skills. You got to learn all that. And I did 30X actually, Dan, to go back to your question. I turned 50. COVID hit. Right? What am I going to do? And so I built a TV studio. I went into my TV studio and laid the track for 30X business. This is what I know about business. It's taken me 30 years to learn, and more than 30 companies that I've run over that period of time that I bought or sold. I started 9 companies. I bought and sold many, many more than that, almost close to 60 now. So I did business. And then when I finished business, I was like, well, what about all the success principles? So I did 30X life. And then I thought, what about wealth? People need to learn wealth. So I did 30X wealth. And here we are, at least at age 50, I got down everything I needed to teach the world on video, and it's there for forever and a day.
Legacy. And as you're watching right now, like if you're looking for a way to stretch your thinking, to be challenged life, wealth, business, to maybe go from incremental to 30X, I want to encourage you to go check out what Brad's got available right now by going to bradsugars.com. That's bradsugars.com. We'll have all the links in this episode as well, so you can access it. On top of that, go check out his YouTube channel. Go check out his other social media channels, and go deep with what Brad has been sharing with you if you're looking to run a company that can run without you. Access the tools.
Dan, the other day I was sitting with a guy on a Zoom call, and there was a guy, and he says, Brad, I wake up with you every morning. I'm like, dude, that sounded weird. He's like, no, I get up every morning and I do my 30 minutes with you. So it's kind of cool that's a thing. And I just want most business owners to realize one thing, Dan. It can happen. It does happen. It can happen for you, but you got to learn it. You got to grow with it.
That's right. Now, what's a question I should have asked you, Brad, that maybe we didn't get to yet?
It's a question you should have asked me, but I didn't get to yet. What's the key to teaching people how to succeed?
Let's go there.
The key to getting people success, or to getting people to succeed, is understanding the formula of success. Formula is pretty simple. I break it down. Everything I teach, I try and break down into a simplistic formula. And this formula is dream, goal, learn, plan, act. Dreams times goals times learning times plans times action equals success. So you got to build your dreams. W. Somerset Maugham said it first: nothing if not at first a dream. Second, goals. You got to turn everything into a goal, and you use the old SMART test. And I know people have changed the old SMART thing: a specific, measurable, achievable, results-oriented time with a time frame. You got to turn everything inside 5 years into a goal. So if it's 10 or 20 years, it's a dream. And everything inside of that got to be a goal. And then from the goals, you decide what you got to learn. You don't just learn for the sake of learning. You decide based on this goal, I need to read this or study this or watch that or attend this type thing. It's by knowing what your dreams are and your goals are, you can determine these are the things I need to be studying. People just read without really planning it. I like planning my reading for the year. I like planning what I want to actually do and doing that. So all 52 books for the year I planned out at the start of the year. Now, occasionally someone will write a new book and we'll throw that one in the mix. And Audible's made my life very easy, especially because Audible can go on 1.8 times speed. And, you know, you can listen to the book real quick.
Yep.
But from your learning, then you devise the plan. And to not put a plan on paper is to not have a plan. And that's why I know when you and Mike were with me, literally at the end of the 5 days, here's the multi-billion-dollar business plan. And that's what people walk with. And I love having that happen when I see that. And from the plan, you take action. And that's the formula for success. So the getting people to dream big is step one. And I know that a lot of people are sort of, I don't know what I want in my life. Great. Tell me what you don't want, and we can work out what you do want. Well, I don't want to be sick. Great. So let's define what that looks like. Well, it means I can exercise. I can do these things. I can do all that stuff. Okay. What else don't I want? I don't want a bad relationship. Great. What do you want then? You know, sometimes you got to do an antithesis exercise to work out what the positive thing of it is for people. But when I sit with business owners, I sit down with them and I say, well, okay, what is the goal with the business? And the first goal I ask them is, well, when's the business going to be finished? And they look at me kind of weird and I go, finished. When is it going to work without you? When is it going to run under management that you can take 6 months vacation and not have to be on email and phone, but you're on 6 months vacation, you're relaxing, that you know you're going to come back and it's going to be bigger than when you left? When is that going to happen? And usually it's a 3 to 10 year goal. Most businesses, 5 to 7 years is how long that's going to take. And they sit down, they set that goal. I say, great. What's it going to be worth when you do that? Well, it's going to be worth this much money. Okay. So how much revenue we got to be doing to do that? And what's our profitability got to look like to sell it for that much? Excellent. So 7 years out, we're going to do these numbers. What's it got to be at 6 years? What's it got to be at 5? What's it got to be at 4, 3, 2, 1, quarter 4, quarter 3, so on and so on. Then we can develop a plan. Once we know that, we can develop a plan to get there. How many customers you got to have? That's where my 5 ways formula of leads, conversion, all of that stuff. If I know we don't have time to do the 5 ways formula today, but if anyone wants that, it's on my YouTube channel.
And I would encourage you, go check out the YouTube channel. The links are here in the show notes. Go to the YouTube channel right now. You can also learn more about Brad and all the amazing resources he's got available at bradsugars.com. That's bradsugars.com. Yeah, Brad, this has been like a masterclass. I just have to say, it's awesome. I'd love to keep this going. And I know I promised you and Sarah a certain time window. So, we just have a minute or so. You've got 5 kids, amazing wife. You had us over to your home. You know, I was, really taken by, just, this lifestyle you've built. What you say is what you've built, right? You take time off, you're present with your kids, you work 2 days a week. And it can be done, like you said, right? And as you're watching or listening, right, I hope that what Brad is sharing with you gives you hope. Here's, my estimation of the valuation of ActionCOACH, which is just one of many businesses that Brad has. But, we're likely talking about over $1 billion valuation if it were valued in what they're doing. So
we're a private company for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know when the last time you sat down with someone who built $1 billion business and, had this kind of conversation or thinking through. But again, if you want to get a taste of this, get a glimpse of Brad even deeper, go check out his programs, 30X Life, Wealth, Business, the YouTube channel. Go to bradsugars.com. Speaking of your family, so this is going to be an oddball, weird question probably, but to do what you do, right? You're an achiever. That's pretty obvious. You're someone who builds and loves to build, like you brought up earlier, the game of building, and then you found something you're really great at and you just love to continue to do that. So as your wife has shown up for you, Brad, right? Like tonight, like as you guys are laying in bed, you may do a version of this pretty regularly as it is, but like if you turned to her and said, hey, honey, I'm really grateful for how you showed up for me to allow me to be me. Like, what would you say to her in how she has allowed you to be your best self?
You know, it's interesting that you use the word allow. There's a difference between your partner in life allowing you to show up and for them demanding you to show up, them pushing you to show up. And I think it's a balancing act between the two. I think there's a definite balance between the two. There are certain areas where, from a business perspective, is definitely an allowing me to show up. And from a family perspective, there's other areas where it's definitely a demanding me to show up. You know, there's certain things where it's like, dang, yeah, you know, and, but to give her thanks for that, it's interesting, Dan, because we both do it for each other. And it's an interesting challenge because we're both the type of people that don't necessarily need the thanks. We're more the let's just do it and get it done type things. And then we're self-thankful. I don't know if there's a word for that, if there's a self-thankful is the word, or that sort of thing. But usually it's not a big thing. We don't make a big deal out of it for us. It's just you know, honey, that was great. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. And we're not really making a big deal out of stuff like that. That's not us. I think, you know, when people, it's always funny when you tell people you have 5 kids, especially living here in Las Vegas, the first question they ask, oh, are you Mormon? You know, because obviously Vegas, Utah, it's a definite Mormon belt. And it's like, no, we're not Mormon. We just have a big family, and they look at you kind of weird. And how do you deal with 5 kids? It's actually, you know, I find 5 kids is easier than 1 kid. It seems that way, but everything in life is pretty easy if you plan it and you manage it and you keep learning towards it type thing. I guess the big thing actually, Dan, you know what? The big thing for my wife is showing up at things when she needs me to show up at. That's probably the best way. Well, I always taught my kids being a friend is about showing up and reaching out. You know, if your friend's having a party, you show up. You just do. I know you don't feel like it that day, but it's your friend. They're having a party. You go, you do the thing, you know, and that's what for my wife and I, it's really just about showing up. For her, you know what the most important thing for her is, Dan? She loves cooking for our family. And so we'll eat at home a lot of nights during the week. But the fact that I am there with her when she cooks dinner and I pour her a glass of wine and I help tidy up behind her, because she's a cyclone in the kitchen, and someone's got to tidy up behind the cyclone. So she makes great dinners, but someone's got to do that. So just little things, I think, is probably the best way to thank them. And just learning those little things about your spouse is probably important.
Little things are big things. And as you're watching or listening, man, first of all, Brad, thank you for giving us a glimpse inside, you know, your family life a bit, your kids, your business is like the way you think about growing and building things. And again, if you're looking for a way to grow your business, get free from the day-to-day, look for some new insights, new strategies, again, go to bradsugars.com, go check out the YouTube channel, go check out all the resources he's got available. If there's a fit there, make sure to reach out to his team through his company and his offices. And, you know, there's just a wealth of programs and services available that can help you at the end of the day. And Brad, I just want to say thanks for, you know, taking the time to share. I mean, like I said, I feel like this has been a masterclass and like a 360-degree view to give.
We've gone over we haven't done much on wealth today, though, have we?
No, we'll save that where they have to go.
Save that for another one. Yeah.
Do that another one, or they got to go get the programs to do that. So I want to challenge you. Take action with what I've got, like 5.5 pages of notes from what Brad's been sharing, from his humble beginnings to, you know, culture, vision, values, mission, talking about building a $3 billion business, a story, an example of a company he sat down with and walked them through how you build a system to build people, to build a great company. 30 minutes, 30 days. Instead of focus on incremental percentage growth, multiply it, become a multiplying force. He talked about leverage, scale, marketability, size. He talked about being able to build a commercial enterprise that runs without you is your responsibility as a business owner. You talked about a formula for success: dream, goals, learn, plan, take action. That's the formula. Dream big, right? When are you going to remove yourself from the bit? When is it going to operate without you? What is the revenue? What is the profitability? Work your way backwards. And on top of that, you can get access to all kinds of tools, all kinds of resources by going to bradsugars.com. Get the courses, get the books, go on Amazon. Again, all the links will be in the show notes. Brad, thank you, brother. I appreciate you taking the time.
Love to be here. Thanks.
Yep. Seize the day. Make it a great week. We'll see you next time on growthtofreedom.com.
Thanks for listening to this episode of growthtofreedom.com. Are you struggling to get a steady flow of new clients every day? Or maybe hit a plateau or hit a wall in growing your business? Well, let's help you solve this problem today. Let's review your business and have a conversation. You can do that for free today at breakthroughstrategycall.com. That's breakthroughstrategycall.com. In addition, if you're looking for a simple way to implement some of what we've been talking about in today's episode, then I want to encourage you to get our free small business toolkit. You can get that at activate.breakthrough3x.com. That's activate.breakthrough3x.com. If you'd like access to the special resources and all the show notes for this special episode, make sure to visit growthtofreedom.com.
Hey, it's Dan Kuschell. Click the buttons over here on the left. You can watch these other couple videos, as well as make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can get access to the latest insights, strategies, and wisdom, giving you more clarity, confidence, and direction for exponential business growth. Hit the button now.